Good morning, everybody. We have a sharply lower trade in the grain markets here early on Friday morning. It is 6:30 a.m. Central Time. March corn futures are down 8.5 cents at 5.15 and 3/4. March soybeans are down 28 and a quarter at 13.42. March Chicago wheat down 14.5 cents at 6.46 and a quarter. March Kansas City wheat is down 12 cents at 6.23 and 3/4. March spring wheat is down 13 and a quarter at 6.22. Just a couple of housekeeping notes before I get started here this morning. Next Wednesday, which I believe is the 27th, I will be doing a live stream with Ed Ussett, who is from University of Minnesota. He's a grain marketing economist there. Ed and I were on an episode of U.S. Farm Report together a few months back, and we shared some common opinions when it came to past grain sales, things like re-ownership, how farmers are always so concerned with grain sales of the past, and that's going to be kind of the topic of this conversation. It's really good stuff. This is going to be kind of like the mental side of grain marketing to some extent, and we're going to explore that a little bit. So should be an interesting conversation. That will be Wednesday next week, and I will give you some more updates on that ahead of the broadcast. And of course, the video and everything will be posted to YouTube and all of the podcast apps. Chatter regarding 2021 U.S. corn or acreage overall, rather, is emerging. IHS Markit Informa was out yesterday. They have corn acreage at 94.2 million, which would be up about 3.5 from 90.8 last year. Bean acreage pegged at 90.1 million, up sharply from 83.1 last year. So just between those two crops, the group is expecting an overall increase of 10.4 million acres versus last year. The group expects sorghum acres to increase to 7.2 million from 5.9 last year. Cotton acreage expected to decline to 11.5 from 12.1 last year. Spring wheat acres expected to decline to 11.5 from 12.3 last year. So you may ask yourself, where are all these acres coming from? You got to remember that we had massive prevent plant the last 2 years, 20 million acres in 2019 and more than 10 million acres last year. So if we return to normal, if we pull some acres away from other crops, you could very well see this corn and soybean acreage increase or an increase of this sort of magnitude. Honestly, I look at the prices and I still think 94 on corn is too low, but there are only so many acres to go around, I suppose. This is not a done deal by any means. You're going to see a whole bunch of estimates along these same lines or acreage estimates, ahead of that March 31st planting intentions report. Increased concern regarding new COVID cases in China is an issue. I think this is starting to get into some of the markets here. So the Chinese government, over the course of 6 days, rushed to build this massive quarantine camp outside of Beijing. This new isolation center is what they're calling it, spans more than 100 acres outside of Beijing. It's supposed to hold 4,000 patients. They've been working around the clock for 6 days to get this thing up and running. So I suppose that this raises concern regarding yet another outbreak in China and perhaps elsewhere. You've really got kind of a risk-off trade in a lot of markets this morning. I mean, stock market's down. Almost all the commodities are down. Bonds are up a little bit. So that's certainly something to be aware of. And as it relates to the grain markets, I mean, any new spike in COVID cases, and I've talked about this at length, ethanol is still a big deal, even though you wouldn't really know it by looking at the board. I mean, that's your big implication for the grain markets potentially. Additional Brazilian soybean production estimates continue to emerge. AgroConsult, that's a well-followed private group in Brazil. They've got the crop at 132.4. That's down from their previous estimate of 133.2. So the trend here has been this. The estimates are coming down gradually, but they're not coming down a lot, and they're almost all still reflective of what may ultimately be a record crop in Brazil. Remember, last year's previous record was 126 million metric tons according to USDA. So just about every group and every estimate that we've seen is still reflective of a record crop. This is a story a lot of you guys will like. The American Farm Bureau Federation has become critical of USDA and their recent reports. This is a quote from Zippy Duvall, who is the president of the Farm Bureau. While NASS may have a gold standard reputation for agricultural statistics globally, U.S. farmers' confidence in their reports has unfortunately declined. He noted that some of the large changes in USDA's numbers over the last couple of years, quote, left farmers questioning the agency's ability to respond quickly to rapidly changing conditions on the ground. The USDA said it's addressing the Farm Bureau's concerns, and there were some recommendations also. The quote from NASS was this: "We feel confident the items recommended in the report either are being addressed or are underway, and we look forward to enhancing our communications in the near future." So this is like the first thing I've really seen from any of the big farm lobbies that has been real critical of USDA and these reports. And I myself have been very critical of USDA and their recent reports, specifically these big after the fact revisions to corn stocks, to the size of the crop, that sort of thing. It's in my opinion, it's cost farmers money, to be honest. There's a new strain of African swine fever in China. This new strain has only infected like 1,000 animals across a few farms at this point, which is not a lot for China. The report or the story here is that this new strain is the result of an illegal vaccine. There is no vaccine for African swine fever at this point, no approved vaccine, but farmers are struggling. They've apparently, there have been some, I don't know if they're black market vaccines or whatever. And you got to remember, China is kind of in the midst of recovering from that initial African swine fever outbreak from a couple of years ago, which at one point killed, 40 or 50% of the hog herd. So they're recovering, and that's a lot of the reason why you've seen this big surge in demand for soybeans and other products. But that's a situation that bears watching. It's not a huge deal for the moment. We'll have our weekly export sales report out at 7:30 this morning. We're looking for some good numbers. Corn sales expected 600 to 1.2. Soybean sales expected 1.1 to 2.1, and that's this year and next year. There's some sales expected for next year also, and then wheat sales 250 to 650. February grain options expire today. If you have any remaining open positions there, make sure you take a look. The EIA report is today. I thought it was yesterday. That's what it said on my calendar, but it's going to be today. We'll have some updated ethanol numbers. Cattle market finished the day higher yesterday. There was some cash trade in Texas, 110 to 111, and 109 to 110 in the north. We'll see what develops here, but the board acted a little bit better yesterday. Again, ahead of the cash open, we have the S&P down about 28 points. The Dow's down 250. We've got the U.S. dollar a little bit higher. The bonds are up. Crude oil's down $1.39 in the March WTI at 51.75. So again, some pressure in the outside markets here. Remember, guys, if you need some information from me, go to my website. It is www.standardgrain.com. Go to that website, click on Grain Marketing Plan here in the upper right-hand corner. For $49 a month, I will send you my morning email, which goes out every day at 6:30 a.m. Central Time, every business day. It includes any overnight headline that you need to be aware of, all of my marketing recommendations. That stuff is broken down by crop year, by percentage. All that stuff is also sent out via text message. You can cancel that deal at any time, no obligation, no other fee, no trading account required. Certainly check it out. Everybody have a wonderful weekend. I'll talk to you next week.